reforesting after the bridge fire. It's going to take a lot of energy like this to bring our national forest back. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Susan. A day in the forest. Thursday, I was in Israel. And there is parts as you enter Jerusalem, areas that look similar to the burnt out areas that you see here in the Angeles National Forest. And there's a significance to the word and to the name Angeles National Forest because in Israel as well, we have an Angeles National Forest. Today, one of the, matter of fact, the number 2 at the U.S. Forest Service, Mr. Janik, is in Israel because Tu B'Shvat, the holiday that we celebrate, is the original Arbor Day. It's a celebration, a holiday, an opportunity for us, a new year, to plant trees, to beautify the world, to bring in from the earth the claiming of the land, and us coming together with nature. Now, why in January, February, during this time of the year, is Tu B'Shvat? Because if you study the roots, it is now that time when the trees that have been barren during the winter are starting to now soak up the water and the moisture and start their growth for the spring. So today, as we've had many people going, and there'll be times and opportunity for you to plant trees for those who didn't, and the buses will go after our ceremony, for us to symbolically celebrate this special day, Tu B'Shvat, and for you to plant trees with your own hands. And together, as tens of thousands of trees today, this weekend, being planted in Israel, as part of our 3 million trees a year that get planted, we will plant trees here in the Angeles National Forest, together with the U.S. Forest Service and us, and celebrate that unique opportunity and that unique partnership that we have with the U.S. Forest Service. I'd like to first introduce Carl Pope, the Executive Director of the Sierra Club. Carl?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here this morning. I didn't bring any trees with me, although I came to plant some trees. But I did bring some seeds. Many of you probably can't even see them. These are the seeds of Sequoia gigantea, the largest, one of the most enduring organisms on Earth. Each one of these seeds, these tiny little brown specks, contains the learning and the knowledge to create a giant sequoia. The learning and the knowledge of all the generations of sequoia back before the ice. We're surrounded by knowledge in the plants around us and the animals around us that goes back in the generations. And when I think of that on this Tu B'Shvat, I feel awe. Cultures and faiths are like seeds. They contain the knowledge of the generations. They create something larger and grander and greater than themselves. But this seed, it doesn't create a sequoia tree by itself or in isolation. If I plant it in certain spots, it won't even sprout. In others, it may grow a seedling and perish in a landslide. Even if it grows into a mature sequoia, every passing windstorm, every snowfall, every fire will interact and relate with the knowledge in this seed to create a unique individual sequoia. Destiny interacts with history to shape cultures and faiths as well. This seed, as it grows, has another role. As it turns into a mature sequoia, it becomes a part of destiny of what is encountered by other forms of life. It creates an ecosystem, even a little microclimate in its shadow. It nurtures birds, mushrooms, lichens, rodents, bacteria, fungi, thousands and thousands of organisms who encounter the tree that grew from this seed and make it their home. Cultures and faiths, humanities, are also a part of the destiny that the rest of life encounters. As we look at these hills, we see the results of one such encounter with humanity. But the difference between the seed and human beings is that the seed interacts with the rest of life without awareness and without choice. We have awareness, we have choice. Those are our gifts, our blessings, and our talent. But again, looking at these hills, we can see that we do not always use that gift, that blessing, that talent wisely. And I hope that on this Tu B'Shvat, and looking out at those of us who have gathered together to use our knowledge and our choice to nurture rather than to destroy the rest of life, that this morning will remind us that as human beings, we uniquely must choose, and it is up to us whether we choose wisely for the rest of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl. Now I'd like to introduce Andy Lipkiss, president of the Tree People.
Thank you. Good morning, and congratulations for getting up, leaving the city, and getting up here to participate in healing this forest and this ecosystem. It is really great to be here with all of you. It's a great honor to be here with the secretary and the chief and all of you who are helping put this world back together. Boy, I've got about an hour and a half's material I want to give you in the 2 minutes that they've given me. I stole the seeds but from Carl, because I also like to talk about redwoods for a very special reason. As Carl said, the tree that sprouts from this becomes one of the largest living things on the planet, the largest tree that we know. The seed is nearly microscopic. It is one of the smallest tree seeds in the world, and yet it grows to be the largest. And for me, the seed represents the same thing in every single individual here. Each and every one of you has the exact same potential. We don't realize how much power we have to heal. We don't realize how much information and support we have. And yet each of us is very much like that redwood. And yes, we go through the fires, and we go through the windstorms, and we go through the snows. Each one of those occurrences threatening our lives, potentially killing us, yet each one strengthening us and adding to our ability to heal. Which brings us to today, and a spin that I've put on the meaning of Tu B'Shvat. Why is there a religious holiday to celebrate trees? What's so important about them? We hear, we know, we can say the trees give us oxygen. They grab water. As you'll be hearing, this forest produces much of the water for Los Angeles. But thousands of years ago, the rabbis realized something when they watched what happened when people forgot. People forget what trees do and how critical absolutely critical they are to the survival of us as individuals and to survival of civilizations. Trees keep on doing their work day in, day out. They actually work in partnership with humans in making the world whole and restoring broken ecosystems. But when we lose the knowledge, back to that critical issue, the knowledge, when we lose that understanding of what trees do, we forget and we let the trees die. And we pave over the ground the trees need to be growing in. And so when it rains, like it does when it does rain in Los Angeles, we throw away all the rainfall because we've removed the place for the trees to do their work. And century after century after century, when people have forgotten the trees and cut them down, their forests have turned to deserts, and civilizations have disappeared, or civilizations have declined. And the wisdom of the rabbis was to put an annual celebration to link us back up with that critical knowledge. And it's important that we're saying thanks to the trees, but it's also important that we begin to take a look at what we need to do in our lives on a daily basis to not just appreciate them and thank them, but help them do their work, because we've really made it hard on trees in cities. Now, Los Angeles receives in an annual drought-ish year 10 inches of rainfall. That's enough water to meet half its needs if we were to capture it and use it right. That water is worth, the water that we wind up throwing away is worth $500 million. We could employ 50,000 young people in inner city areas managing Los Angeles as an urban forest watershed if we knew the lessons of the trees and the forests that we're here to continue teaching you today. So there's a lot of healing possible, and this holiday is really what that's about. So I could go on forever. I just want to thank you for being here, participating in the hands-on restoration, participating in the education, bringing the kids to learn something that they'll never forget, and enjoy the planting with us all.
Thank you, Andy. And the tree people have done an incredible job today. My next is to introduce Secretary of Resources, Mary Nichols, representing Governor Gray Davis.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the governor, it is indeed an honor to share this platform with Secretary Glickman and Chief Dombeck. I want to extend a hearty welcome to you for coming out here to California. I've been looking forward to this all week. First, because I get to come home to Southern California, and secondly, because I get to celebrate Tu B'Shvat with you, which is a very special day. It's an ancient holiday. It also celebrates the renewal of the earth and the return of spring, and is an opportunity to commit ourselves to the future and to generations that will come after us through what Andy has called the simple act of planting a tree. Preparing for the future is very much on my mind these days, because I'm spending most of my time when I'm not in the office going around the state talking to people about two propositions that are going to be on the March ballot, Propositions 12 and 13, that are going to have a very significant impact on our forests and on our water. Through these two bonds, we are going to be able to protect land for wildlife and for people, create habitat and protect the water that we all depend on. We're also, through Propositions 12 and 13, going to be able to raise money without raising taxes. It's through the miracles of bond funding in order to improve the safety and reliability of our water quality, of our urban water supplies, to protect streamside forests, aquatic habitats around the state, stabilize our core water supplies through the San Francisco Bay Delta, from which we here in Southern California draw so much of our water supply, and improve some of the urban water supplies and the water facilities as well. I'm hoping that everybody here is going to take the time to learn more about these bonds. Even more important, if you're a grown-up, you can vote on March the 7th. If you're a kid, you can make sure that any adult that lives in your house doesn't get to come home and watch TV or enjoy an evening of peace. until they've gone to the polls and voted, because if there is one thing that people can do this year as citizens, it is to exercise their right to go to the polls and to tell everybody that we want to put our state back into the business of protecting our trees and our landscape and our water, and that's what we can do. So thank you very much. Bonds, you can think about those bonds as little seedlings, little saplings that we're going to start planting come next March. Over a period of years, they will produce money that can be used by our communities, our cities, our park districts, our water districts, as well as the state, to protect the environment that we all depend on. So, shalom, thank you for being here, and toda rabah.
Thank you very much, Mary. I now have the pleasure to introduce a true partner to the Jewish National Fund. As I said, somebody from the U.S. Forest Service today is in Israel, not only just planting trees, but helping us dealing with watershed management, which water is the most critical issue that faces Israel and the Middle East today. So I'd like to introduce the Secretary of Agriculture, Dan Glickman.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the JNF for co-hosting this event. First of all, I want to acknowledge my friend Mike Dombeck, who's Chief of the Forest Service. And some of people say, well, why is the Secretary of Agriculture here? Well, I wanted you to know that the Forest Service is the largest part of the United States Department of Agriculture. It's bigger than the wheat, the corn, the soybeans, the rice, the milk, the cows, the pigs, and everything else. Doesn't mean that those aren't as important. They are. But the Forest Service is the largest part of it. In fact, I see one of our best employees over there, Smokey Bear. Smokey, you want to stand up and wave for everybody here? Smokey is probably our best employee. He never argues with me, never files suit against me. He does what he's supposed to do all the time, and we appreciate that, and appreciate everything that the Forest Service is doing. Let me also commend the JNF, the Jewish National Fund, for their leadership. Russell mentioned this for a moment, but we're working together with the Forest Service and the JNF on a very large $3.5 million evaluation of watersheds in the Middle East, specifically Israel, Jordan, the Palestinian Authority, and Turkey. This program, which is also co-sponsored by the United States Department of State, the Agency for International Development, represents the kind of cooperation which fosters good relations and helps as much as anything else to advance the peace process. And what the JNF is doing, helping countries in that area who have very little rainfall, same kind of area we have here, is something that we're proud to be a part of. I also want to thank Carl Pope, Andy Lipkis for all their work. Today we're going to plant 350 new oak trees to replenish an area of this forest that was burned out in 1998. And I would say I was here this summer, about 30 miles east of here, in the San Bernardino National Forest. And we were standing about 5 miles from this incredible fire line that was, in some cases, 200 feet high, walls of fire moving across the landscape, burning tens of thousands of acres. And we looked to the west and we could see this fire, which I believe was at least in part started by intentional efforts. And we think to ourselves how fragile the resources are. So it is really, really important. This part of what my job is to try to do our best to keep America green and reforest America. I want to thank Mary Nichols for her great contributions to a cooperative effort. Also the Consul General, who will have a few words to say. You know, you have a secretary, you have a general here. It's really, I don't know, he doesn't like to be called general, but that's what I'm going to call him, because he's general in our army to try to deal with these issues. I would also say I want to thank the JNF. I know that our Forest Service people are in Israel today, and they're planting trees, and a couple of them are being planted in memory of my parents who passed away last year. My son John is here, who lives in Los Angeles, and came with me today to be a part of this event as well. I want to say just a couple words about the issue of tree planting. In Israel, tree planting is part of the national commitment to the land. And here in the United States, we are blessed with some of the richest farmland, forests, and pastures in the world. But over the years, we have tended to take these for granted. It has to do with the magnificent size and geography and bounty of our great country. But in some cases, we haven't taken and taken care of that land as we should, and the damage we have done has not necessarily been as readily apparent. It didn't happen overnight, but it is the degradation of some of that damage is going to be very difficult to repair, particularly as our cities infringe upon some of our natural resources areas, which of course people in Southern California know as much as anybody else in the country. I don't have to repeat what Carl and others have said, but the fact is that trees bring enormous environmental benefits. They keep pollutants out of our water streams. Most of our nation's watersheds start in our forests, most, and that is watersheds not only in the west but in the east as well. In fact, a few years ago I was in New York City dedicating a conservation project. New York City gets its water from watersheds upstate in the Catskill Mountains and elsewhere. It's probably the largest city in the world which has virtually unfiltered water coming through natural watershed, and we're trying to keep that as some of the finest natural water in the world. And it's one of the reasons we preserve this area. Not only is it natural beauty, not only is there recreation where we encourage people to take advantage in sensible and responsible recreation, but we need these areas to keep us flush with clean water. And it can't be done automatically. It just can't be done without working on these things. In addition, the environmental benefits of trees have enormous positive nature. Recently, I was with the mayor of Chicago. You know, Mayor Daley, Richard Daley, one of the great mayors of America. He told me, he said, if he is going to be known for anything in this world in terms of what he's done as mayor, he wants to be known as the tree mayor. And he's planted tens of thousands of trees all through the city of Chicago. And what he has found in many areas, particularly the downtown area, is that it has resulted in significantly lower utility bills for the city of Chicago and people who live in the area as well. So cooler air means lower, with more trees means lower energy bills for families. Cleaner water means more water for us, healthier fishing stocks, and an important part of just the economics of America. But trees are part of our national green infrastructure. It's as important as roads and bridges and ports. We've got to remember that trees are part of the infrastructure, like building a new water retention facility, like building new highways. Trees have to be considered as part of that. And what the president wants to do is to challenge every American to do their part to improve the nation's green infrastructure. So today we come to a forest to celebrate trees and all they give us, but our attention cannot end at the forest edge. You got to look at our cities, look at the problems that they're facing in terms of congestion, air and water pollution, and other quality of life issues. There's a song Joni Mitchell sang. I quote the song. It starts out that says, "You don't know what you got till it's gone." And the next line is, "They paved paradise and put up a parking lot." And well, it's time to control the spread of those parking lots and let a little bit of paradise back in our lives. Trees and plants and lakes and streams need to be part of both our urban and a suburban landscape. That's why the president will be asking for permanent funding through the Land and Water Conservation Fund to support our urban and community forestry and forest legacy programs. And that is the reason why the president and vice president have pushed the Millennium Green Campaign to encourage citizens in every community, from Manhattan Island to Manhattan Beach, to work together to create a greener America in the new century, to plant tens of millions of trees in every state in this country, to green up our communities, to improve our water, to improve our air, and the regreening will also make it a lot more attractive place to live. This part of the country will become more attractive, and as well as every other part of the country as well. So, as the Secretary of Agriculture, I'm glad to participate with the private sector behind me, and especially the JNF, to basically reinforce this idea that America's landscape is the key to the generations to come, and preserving this landscape is so important for our environment, for our quality of life, and for something as simple as clean water. So I thank you for inviting me here, and I look forward to coming back when I look to my right and see an area that's been pretty much burned out. And hopefully we'll see an Angeles National Forest when we come back, future generations come back, that we can say we had something to do with changing the quality of life in this part of the country. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Secretary. And now from the representing the government of the State of Israel, Consul General Yuval Rotem.
Secretary Glickman, other distinguished friends, guests. The Talmud tells a story about the sage Oni, who while walking along a road saw a man planting a carob tree.